Hi, and welcome everyone. It's Varleigh with you at Lavender Sky Panther. Welcome, welcome. We are going to talk about unicorns, true, rainbows, and you. You spelled YEW, as in the tree or the bush, the wood. So we've got three key themes running in the title. I'm going to go ahead and mark the show here with a little cover page. And I'm going to get a little set here. You need a little warm up time as well, but that's the cover. So that's where we're headed. And I want to say welcome to Rita Pita in the chat. She says, hi, everyone. Hi, Varleigh. Hope everyone is well. Thank you. And same wishes for everybody out there. So we are going to get into some very interesting things regarding this is not going to be your average, ordinary fluff rainbows and unicorns and puffy white clouds and sparkles kind of show, although that's all fine and good. We're going to get into some detail and we're going to look at some historical documents, whether it's manuscripts, whether it's things like the Bible or the Talmud, or even classical paintings and other clues out there in what we can access, at least what we know might be more or less some history, whether it's true or not, that's another story. So in the title, I've got unicorns true. I have found evidence where I can say in my comfort level, in my story of what my creation is, absolutely unicorns existed, also do exist in other ways, even if we can't physically see them with our physical eyes, just like a lot of us can't see a ghost or a loved one who has transitioned. They're really still with us. They're just very much alive in a different frequency, in a different plane or realm, if you will. And what we're going to be looking at is in this title of unicorns, rainbows, and the yew, wood or trees or bushes, the common denominator of those three main, let's just say, words, unicorn, rainbow, yew, is that they all are bridges. Okay, there are bridges one way or the other. So as I was putting the show together, as per usual, I meditate lightly and just say, hey, what wants to come through? I don't force it. Sometimes I get the next topic coming up immediately after I do a show like this. Sometimes it takes all week, and sometimes it doesn't even shake out till close to airing time, like today. And so I thought to myself, well, why these three buzzwords like unicorns, rainbows, and you? There's got to be more than just a loose connection, amongst the three. So as I start researching for the week, little things were coming through. And so the big one is, yes, they all act as bridges. Now we can even push that further and talk about what's a bridge. And I'm kind of going to stymie myself and go out of order here. But look at Norse mythology. We've got the Great Life Tree, and we've got a rainbow bridge coming down from Asgard to Midgard. So it's coming from the immortals to the mortals plane. So that's one form of a bridge. But that rainbow, or they call it the Bifrost, that rainbow coming down between the two, could be looked at as a bridge, could be looked at, yes, as the rainbow, could be looked at a conveyance or a way that the gods could send messages down. So if you look at, we'll go into Greek mythology, Iris or Iris in Spanish. In Spanish, actually, the name for rainbow is arco iris. In Greek mythology, we have Iris or Iris. She is a messenger from the gods, the Olympian gods, down to the mortals on the mortal plane. And she had a sister named Arca. So we have arco iris is like the two sisters with that kind of rainbow symbology. A lot of interesting, fascinating stories that spin off from there, but I'm not going to go down there. But what I just want to say is rainbows can be bridges, but also we can look at the idea of stargates. That's what I'm going to explore. The more I started looking into these three things, unicorns, rainbows, you, I started to see kind of a pattern emerging in the classical art and art in ancient maps, art of antiquity. And I'm going to show some examples. I do have my usual few slides to show some stuff, and I'll point out some things. We'll get there. But the more classical paintings I was looking at, or images, engravings, and old maps, it all keeps showing the unicorns. And the unicorn had a few different names. And also some say, well, no, those weren't unicorns. They were referring to far off east in India. They saw a rhinoceros, and so they called that the unicorn. I have evidence to show no, that's not the case. The people writing these ancient texts, they knew the difference. They were no idiots. they knew the difference between what, they were talking about, and they used very precise language to describe these things. And so anyway, I'll show the backup for that. Or they say, oh, if it wasn't the rhinoceros in India that they were referring to, oh, they saw the profile of an ox, or some kind of like ox-like animal, oryx, and they just saw in profile the one horn. It really would have had two, but on the side view it had one. So they were just drawing that. Well, no, again, the people, many people's doing these drawings, they knew the difference between those things. And so actually, I guess I'll go ahead and start showing the first case of that, and then we'll get into things further. Yeah, let me do that. I'll get it out of the way. I'm just trying not to go out of order on myself. Anyway, let me hold this up. So the first example I'm going to show you is coming from a map, actually two different maps. So one is from the 1500s. Yeah, I really am jumping out of order, so bear with me. This show is going to be interesting. I had a late start. As you can see, the time shifted from what we were going to do 8 p.m. Eastern to 11:30 p.m. Eastern. And because of the reason of why this had to shift, I'm probably going to, make this a different kind of show. So I'm going to try to make connections, connect the dots that I see. And I also throw them out there as usual, as little nuggets or little maybe stepping stones, little springboard information for maybe some of you out there to pick up the pieces and maybe put this weaving together, weave a better story, or weave an ongoing story with more, what do I want to say, enrich and enhance the tapestry we're making. Or, go ahead and go down some other little badger holes and connect some of these, universal truths we're all trying to get to. So these are just, food for thought. That's the way I can sum that whole thing up. But anyway, we'll see things like I have two maps. So we have the Mappa Mundi from Hereford, and that's estimated to be around 1300 AD. And then we're going to look at another map from 1587. Some of you may know it already. It's the, you know what, I forget the official name of it, but it's that Urbano Monte map. So that one's at the top. So here, let me do this. The Urbano one. The Urbano Monte map has this on it, and it says Alicorno. Alicorno. Now, in a lot of other texts, as you can see, that looks like a unicorn to me. Look where the horn placement is. It is at the third eye. If we were horses, it'd be right here, right? So the alicorno, apparently, in some of the manuscripts I was looking at, the alicorn, so we have unicorn, but the alicorn referred to a specific location along this, we'll call it like the spire, the horn. At the very tip is supposedly the alicorn. So anyway, that's just one little, fact there. And then the other map I wanted to show. So we have, existence of an alicorn. That doesn't look like a rhino or an ox to me. I think we can all agree, that's looking like a horse. And in that map, they also have things like dragons. They have mer-type people. They have all kinds of these quote-unquote mythological animals, right? So then there's another map, the Mappa Mundi from Hereford in England. Or that's where it is now. It's huge. I think it's like 4 feet by 4 feet. Anyway, we'll look at that. I'm going to hold this up. So look at these two figures. I'll try to hold it as still as I can. It's been a crazy ass day. But look, we'll do one at a time. See this one at the top? And again, look at the horn placement. It's at the nose. That's in no way can be confused with the third eye, correct? And then there's right below it, this one. And the horn placement is where? At the third eye. So again, those who are trying to argue that, oh, the unicorn is just this like, kind of a beast of burden, workhorse of a animal, and that just happens to be a profile, they got it confused. No, they did not. Okay, so that's just some illustrative evidence. Now, we're going to get into also some very interesting evidence. Let's do a little walkabout on that. First, I know I'm going to be all over the place. But let me explain the cover, and then we're going to go in order of unicorn, rainbow, and you. And also, before I get going too far, I know Rita's here, and thanks again for being here. Just thank you, one and all, whether you're new or, have come back to this channel. Thanks for being here. And we're just it is still Saturday. Yes, where I'm at. So it's just all about having some fun this weekend. And maybe, looking at some things and thinking about things we normally wouldn't. I know all of this stuff that I'm presenting. I wouldn't have thought about it unless I had a fun little challenge and fun time of doing these shows on Saturdays. Excuse me. So here we go. All right, we already covered this part of the maps. and the drawings. Let me just see if I'm still in here. Okay, this is just so you can see the wood grain of the yew tree. That's a bowl. This happens to be a scene depicting a unicorn down here that was like off to the edge or the side of a bigger scene of the Garden of Eden. And here's another one over here, the Garden of Eden. And it's just this section here. So in the Garden of Eden, all these engravings I'm finding, usually the unicorn is in a position where the horn is touching water. So the tip usually is touching into the water. This looks like a fountain pouring out, but usually the unicorn is like tilting the head down and just the tip is in the water itself. Also, in a lot of these illustrations, time and time again, I was looking at medieval stuff, Gothic stuff, really classical paintings that are in museums and in these maps. And there's always a lion present, and also, where there's the unicorn. And that's going to lead us into the royal, crest that has the lion on the left side and the unicorn on the right. We'll get into that in a minute. But anyway, the rest of this is there's like an old, classical painting of just, rainbow, lots of rainbows occurring in classical paintings. And then down here, you just see a little snippet. I'll show a better picture later. But below that circle in the center here, this is a whole kind of prism-like effect. It's an art installation in a museum. It's really cool what happens. So we'll get to that soon. So what I want to say is there's a strong connection as we move into the unicorn portion of the show of unicorns with water, flowing water, not stagnant water. Usually if it's a river, it implies that there's movement, there's life to it, or like we saw with that fountain. And it's really intriguing because a lot of the literature and things also are saying that the unicorn was well known for its ability to alchemize water. If it was poisoned in the water, the unicorn put the horn in it and it purified it. So the unicorn figure is known as an alchemist, as a water purifier, many things actually. And as I said, also we'll look at its ability to be a bridge between realms and worlds. But anyway, let's get into this part of my little sheet. Okay, talk a little bit more just about the unicorn. So the unicorn shows up not only, like I said, in the maps and other classical, museum galleries, but we have different artifacts. This is like a spigot, like a hand pump that water comes out. So again, strong association with unicorn and water. Another one, unicorn and water, is a downspout on the top of a church in Barcelona. So the water, flows off the roof, comes through this thing and out the mouth. And that's a unicorn right there. So then we have the seal. I think that's the House of Windsor, or whatever the current royal family in England is over there. Okay. And there we have two different mottos on this crest. Now it's important to note that you've got the lion with a crown and you've got the unicorn over here who is tethered with a golden chain. Okay, and there's a moon symbology with the unicorn, and some say, the lion is representative of the sun. And there's much more symbolism here, but I'm not going to cover that. I'm really just going to focus on the two figures because, again, all these classical paintings were showing the unicorn, but also a lion nearby. And we've got more crescent moons and such. And I'm going to explain that a little bit more coming up. But what I want to do is read the two mottos. So if I can read them correctly, I wrote them down, but it's kind of small writing. One of the mottos down below says, pardon my French or my Latin, I'm not sure if it's going to be correct, but "Du et mon droit" is God and my right. So that's along the bottom. And then on the top or along the sides, there's another inscription on that royal crest that says, "Honi soit qui mal y pense," meaning shamed be the one who thinks ill of it. Or another interpretation is something about evil. Let me read that one if I can find it quickly. Bear with me and let me see if I can find it quick enough. If not, we'll leave it for now. And I can put it in the description later. Yeah, but it has something to do with like evil is evil. Hang on. So that's interesting to have on the crest regardless. Let's see. Okay, yes, sorry. So the other interpretation, the "Honi soit qui mal y pense" is evil to him who evil thinks. So that's kind of an odd motto, don't you think, to be on the crest? So God in my right, and evil to him who evil thinks. Just think it's kind of odd. But anyway, that's what's going on in this crest here. Okay. And some say, yeah, that the unicorn with the crescent represents, yeah, I think I mentioned that already, nighttime. And the other one is, the lion and the sun is daytime. But I don't really jive with that interpretation. Some people do talk about that. I think that the crescents are associated with the unicorn for a much more important reason, which we'll get into in an example coming up in the next couple of slides. So for now, I just want to show some examples of more depictions in classical artwork. And so this is coming from the corner of a tapestry. So we get a sense of most depictions are showing a horse-like being, maybe even a little goat-like with a little kind of goatee thing happening below. But in no cases are these looking like oxes or steers. It's always based on like a horse model. Okay. Now, these get to be a couple of different examples. A lot of these, wherever they show the unicorn, they show a quote unquote pure or virgin maiden, and she calms down the unicorn, sometimes acting as a witting or unwitting lure in a hunt for the unicorns. Supposedly, in the hunt, there was a maiden, and she would kind of coax the unicorn on over, pacify the unicorn, and then the hunters would get it. So that I'm not sure what that's all about, or if that's really true, but that's what a lot of these depictions are saying is, what is being depicted in the paintings and such. Now this one's interesting here in the corner. This is Orpheus, part of him. I didn't want to show his full butt cheeks naked here, but here is Orpheus, and here it's in German. It's a painting by Tizian, and there's a German subtitle which is saying that Orpheus is enchanting the wild animals. Now, the wild animals he's enchanting, we have some kind of deer, a buck, we have the unicorn in the back, and then we have the lion again present. But what's interesting is in the foreground, we also have a dragon, 2 wings, and that's absolutely a dragon. So again, these mythical creatures keep coming up over and over and over in these classical paintings and the manuscripts, etc. And it all comes down to what? Some people's interpretation, and whoever's interpretation is picked up and mass produced out and parroted out the most becomes the running narrative. Well, I say, no, I don't agree with it. I don't feel that that's correct, that when they say, oh, it's just they got confused back then with a rhinoceros. Well, again, I'm telling you, no, they sure as heck didn't. In the 1300s, if we can trust that timing, certainly older, if not older, they are distinguishing between the unicorn and something like a rhinoceros, which even in that upper one, that could have even been a form of a dragon, because I've shown it before on, I think I have it in my live, I think it's live 12, where I say, it's High Story Baby, that show. I think I do show the panel on the Ishtar Gate in Babylon. Again, that's only like 40, 50 miles south of Baghdad in Iraq. In that Ishtar Gate, the front of it, they have glazed bricks of different animals, and those are sitting in the Pergamon Museum in Berlin, Germany at the moment. They're currently renovating it for like 10 years. It's a little odd, but anyway, little side fact there. But on that gate, on these glazed tiles on the front, they show a bull from the side view. So that is a bull. You can see the horns from the side view. They have something that looks like a cross between a dragon and something else, also with kind of a horn coming out. And then they have the lions on there too. So here we go. There's like this continued theme of where we have these wild animals, whether in the Garden of Eden or wherever they are. It just seems to be a specific group. Now, some could say those are just symbolisms for different things, which we'll get into in a minute. But they can also be, very real, situational animals. And I think anytime they say mythological, I think if you found my channel, even if you can't quite grasp around it yet, wrap your mind around it, I think deep down, somewhere in there, your soul knows that, yeah, of course, there were unicorns, there were dragons. Ask any little child to draw something. Usually they're in a great reverie and all happy. What are they drawing immediately? Rainbows, which we're getting to next. A sun, which is usually golden or yellow, just like the emojis are. We don't have white emojis. If you look up at the sky now, the sun is white, not golden yellow, like most of us remember. So a little kid will bust out the colors. They'll make the rainbow. They'll do the golden sun. They'll maybe do a puffy white cloud. And then when they keep going, they're probably going to draw something like a horse or unicorn. We've got that in our memory. Okay. Or you might have someone, if it's maybe I'm thinking more of girls. I think boys do it too if, at a certain age. But maybe if they're a little bit older, they might go into the dragon or the dinosaur realm with the drawings. Again, things that are considered myth or oh, didn't exist, or if they existed, they're just kind of pushed, under the rug, but very much around. And whether or not they're here in this dimension or in another or parallel dimension, they absolutely exist because the memory is too great and too strong. Why are they so popular if there isn't a deep-seated memory of these things being real? And then you look at things like the Welsh flag. The flag of Wales has a big red dragon on it. What is that, just for fun? The Canadian flag has a maple leaf on it. Well, they actually have maple leaves last time I checked. So anyway, just saying. Okay, let's go to now. We're going to focus on the unicorn portion of the show. Like I said, we'll try to follow the order here. And what I want to talk about, I did show you a little bit of some of the artifacts and downspouts and things like that. But there are two things that came up on my radar. Now, maybe you've heard of them. I have seen one image, and this started my whole search here on the path of finding if, unicorns are real. You may know this one image. Here, I'm going to kind of do my old-fashioned cropping. It's just folding this paper. But most people, even if you don't know where it came from or what it is or what the size of it is, probably I would venture to say, even if you haven't had any kind of a art history class or haven't been to some museums, I'm venturing a guess here, going out on a limb on our you theme, bad pun, that you have seen this image. So, and if you haven't, no worries. But it is a unicorn sitting there very staid. There is a girdle, like a belt around its neck. So it's implying that it's tethered to the tree. Then we have this fence around it. Now, you can't get the detail out of this because it's, it's just a bad copy I printed. But there's also little flecks of reddish, looks like, well, kind of like blood stain. Okay. Little stains. Now, some say, oh no, it's just a pomegranate tree and it dropped its juice on it. Well, when you see what this is a part of, no, I'm going to say it's blood. It was, pierced or harmed. So the thing is, though, that the style of this and what it is a tapestry. Okay, sorry, I should say that. It's a tapestry. It's a very complex tapestry. It's one of 7 in a collection that I'm going to get to the detail on. So we've got this tapestry. What do we know about tapestries? They're beautifully woven. This one has a ton of detail. I invite you to go online and find a good copy of this that you can zoom in on. I put a video of it, kind of a tour of looking at some of these things in my post section. So a lot of things I'm talking about now, if I don't get to the detail, go ahead and check out my post section. I try to put little things here and there as I was researching this, and because my printouts aren't going to be the best. Anyway, have a look here. So the background is a ton of botanicals. So they call that technique mille fleurs, if I say that right in French, meaning 1,000 flowers. And when you really look at the detail, they really do have a ton of different species in there, all the different botanicals. And it's so complex that you have to ask yourself, what kind of sophisticated loom or tapestry embroidering technique had to have been available to do something like this? I mean, it's extremely detailed. And some of these panels are over 12 feet high. I forget how wide. So this is a memory I have of, I took a tour of a lot of the old Gothic churches in Europe back in around 1995. And I happened to go into a town and they had this image on a pillow and it just stuck in my mind. So as I was putting the show together about unicorns, I'm like, yeah, hey, what was that pillow? What was on it? And it was this. This now leads me to the bigger panels and where they're located. So maybe you've even seen them. Maybe you've been lucky enough to go to the extension of the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. There's a building called the Cloisters. Now, I have not been there, but it looks like an original, probably like a 1300s cloister building to me. So I wonder, if that's a real legitimate one or what the story is there. But anyway, in gallery number what now? 17. This is a secret society number. There's a lot of numerology around the story I'm going to tell you right now. of these tapestries, 7 large tapestries called the Unicorn Tapestries, or more specifically, it's a series talking about the hunt for the unicorn. Now, supposedly, nobody knows the actual date on these things. What they do say is that after one of the, let's see, was this one, like after like one of the world wars or something, they were found in like a barn and they were wrapped around some plants. They were deteriorated, whatever. It was one of these found stories. These tapestries were supposedly in this French family for hundreds of years or 100 years. I can't remember. I'll look it up again and clarify later. But French family had it for quite some time, I think over 100 years at least. Then they kind of went missing. And then, oh, guess who happens to find them and purchase all of them? John D. Rockefeller Jr. Okay, that name should jump out at you. Now, when were these tapestries purchased? And I'll show you a picture in a minute. They were purchased in 1922, which is another secret society number, especially the emphasis on the 22 in that number, but the whole number 2. Then the purchase amount was allegedly $1.1 million. Well, that's an 11, a very popular and big time master number in the world of the secret societies. Anyway, there's just so much in the number coding. I mean, it really, they're putting these extraordinary unicorn themed tapestries and gallery number 17, just saying. And again, huge coded secret society number on that. Kind of, if you think of like, I don't attribute it to any specific group, but you know, people mostly know like Freemasonry and all of that. The upper levels above the 32 degree or 33 is another one of those numbers. So we're talking that level or that type of thing. Now, I don't want to just put a label on it that that's who the group is. I don't know, but I'm just saying those are the numbers used, and those are the numbers coded in things, such as anything on Wiki, such as anything in the media that tells you of an accident and how many people have passed. It's always going to be one of these numbers that adds up to 17, 22, 33, on and on and on. Okay. Now, putting that aside, though, we'll get back to our unicorns. So, and I do invite you to look this up on your own because I don't have this in the proper sequence and I don't know if I have all 7, but just know that there's this whole suite of tapestries. Let me do this again, do my old-fashioned cropping. And if you wonder why I don't just show the PowerPoint behind me or anything, I believe in keeping this tactile. Also, I believe that whatever I'm transmitting here in these lives, it's kind of for posterity. And it's probably a little bit harder to scrub some of my stuff if it's not electronic per se, like link or whatever, like in the electronic file. Anyway, so here's one of the galleries that it's in. I guess all of them are in here. I have not been there. Again, if you have and you want to chime in, whether in the live chat comments or email me, let me know. It's kind of fun to know if anybody was there. Here anyway. So this is the Cloisters, the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Now, this gives you an idea, of the scale of one of these. Unfortunately, nobody's standing there, but you can see by some of the objects in the room, that's probably a dehumidifier, or, something that regulates the humidity in this salon. So that's maybe just below your waist height, so it gives you an idea though, like I said, I think some of these are like 12 feet high of some of these tapestries. And so it's about the hunt. And just to really cut it like abbreviated version, abridged version, I will just say and I'll show you the images after because they kind of all go together on my sheet. But there's a hunting party, they assemble. Then the hunting party goes off, tries to find the unicorn. There's a lookout guy in the tree. They have the supposed pure woman standing by, ready to come in and coax and pet the unicorn. Then they have a scene where they're very unfortunately, stabbing the unicorn with spears. Not just one hunter, but ambushing the thing. And it's not super graphic, so I wouldn't show it if it is. But, they're spearing it. And then suddenly, at the end, you have the unicorn within the fence just sitting there. So I'm not sure if all of these, there's like a couple that look out of character with the other ones. So I'm not sure how these came to, come into a collection. But that's just kind of what they do. So it might be a mixed match of different eras or different time periods or different artisans who did these. But the point is that for $1.1 million back in 1922, good old, well, not being sarcastic, John D. Rockefeller Jr. thought it important enough to make sure he assembled and gathered these things and then, hung them up here. Now, As we know with history, we don't know what's true. I think it's safe to say we don't. We've been fed so much misinformation and lies about our own past that we kind of have to like go intuitively. Again, we're our own truth detector within, kind of like, does that story I'm being told sound right? Should I question it? Yes, people say question everything. We're in the era of question everything, and also use our inner truth detector, which is really just like your gut level feeling, but using your heart space, and connect in. Like, does that vibe right with me? So even the story of him coming in and purchasing them, well, that's a nice story from the outside of things. It makes sense. A guy with a lot of money comes in, buys these rare things, and displays them. However, maybe we need to question that too. Maybe they were already in some warehouse in place, and then this is kind of one of those secret society things where they need these things displayed for their own ilk, emphasis on ilk, to be able to decode things further for their own use. And it's put under the guise of, oh, we need to display it to the public, but they're not giving us the real story here. As it is, they're saying, oh no, it's still a mythical unicorn and there was a hunting party. But you look in each one of these tapestries and there's coded messages in here if we still really want to, explore further. And this is not going to be a deep dive. Like I said, kind of in part just. These shows sometimes maybe get a little deep. It just depends if it wants to go there. But it's also meant to be a light snorkel. Again, these are just kind of food for thought. Do any of these things that I'm talking about inspire you? Do any of the images trigger something in you in a good way? Bring about a memory or something that just like makes you want to go further and look into some of these things and connect your own dots. So anyway, here it got a little dark on the printout. So here, just from a distance, you can see that this is a tapestry, this is another one. And then there are a couple down here. So you can see the character of them are very different. So yeah, these look a little more muted and subdued. I think in real life, they might be a little more colorful, but inherently these are a little more vibrant and have a different style to the tapestry, the weaving. But anyway, I'll just, hold up what I can. So again, look it up on your own and you'll find out more. So this is the hunting party assembling, and they have dogs and things. Here's like the lookout in the tree. Here's the woman. So apparently she's coaxed the unicorn over. And then we get into up here, a little chaos happening. Hold on. Sorry, I don't mean to be shaky on you. I don't know if you can see. I'll just hold it up. So there's a little bit of mayhem when they're trying to identify and find the unicorn. And then over here, you can see that, here's the unicorn. And they're starting to, the guys here with the spear, and they're wounding it enough that it bleeds. Now, again, once I said down here, it's not fine enough detail on this printout to show you. There's like little blush splashes of like a little bit of like rosé looking blood. So nothing deep, but again, I'm not buying the pomegranate leaked on it story. I think, it's probably was wounded. Now, as a part of the historical accounts in some books, back in the day, back in the medieval times, there were, it was just well known that a unicorn horn had medicinal properties. It would heal, not only purify water, but it would heal any illness. So if people ingested poison, the unicorn or drinking from the unicorn horn would cure you, So this was very much a quote unquote known thing, to such an extent that allegedly these noble families, would pay the equivalent of, I don't know what, but like millions, billions just to have access or get a unicorn horn. Now, some people say that some of the unicorn horns on display aren't unicorn horns. They're really narwhal horns, or, a certain kind of a rhino horn that was kind of pushed off on these people saying it was a unicorn horn. Well, and some of as you look around on the internet, look in some of the museums, little curio cabinets and things showing these unicorn horns or supposed ones, some look, you can tell like, well, that's not quite what I think a unicorn horn would look like. But there are other cases where you're like, no, that looks like a unicorn horn. Just again, instinctively use your truth detector test. I mean, I saw a couple of images where I'm like, okay, that feels like that's legit. Other ones, yeah, no, not so much. And you can tell by the shape, the form, and also if you're really in touch, or you can practice this too. If you're not, you just start to read it. You can read the energies coming off any artifact, once you kind of just train yourself and get into that. Let me take a break for a second and look at the chat. So Rita says, I have not done much research yet on the Pegasus. Maybe a topic for another video. Wink, wink, LOL. Funny you mentioned that, Rita. Excuse me. But of course, as I'm looking at unicorn, how can we not look at the Pegasus, right? And I think in some images, there's even a like a unicorn with wings, like, you know, you name it, it's out there. And so that is another topic, and also has similar to what I'm talking about here. There's going to be a Greek origin story, you know, of where and who and what Pegasus was and who Pegasus associated with, and on about that. So yeah, so I have an answer to that. If it wants to come up, I'll do it. As I've mentioned too, with any of my shows, if some of you out there, and some of you have done this. So again, thank you to any of you who have reached out. You know, sometimes I've been so severely shadow banned on this channel that sometimes it doesn't like let comments take and stuff. But feel free to email me too. If you have any little nuggets of information, I'll fully credit you if you want, or I can say anonymous or very kind viewer of the channel if you don't want to be shouted out to. But, you know, some of you find some interesting things. And if it's like fits in, or, you know, I feel like I can talk about it, or you fill me in, with some detail on it, I'll bring it up gladly in the show. So we'll see where this wanders. You know, you may be onto something, Rita. I really don't know too much about Pegasus, just a little, you know, very little. But who knows? Maybe we all will learn a lot more about that soon. So in the meantime, there's some fun stuff here we'll keep getting to. And thank you. Thanks for the idea. We'll see if it wants to come through. Now, there's another set of tapestries, if that wasn't enough to see that one whole first suite. And I do want to go back to that because I think it's important to put an underline under this, put an exclamation on it, to look into those tapestries. There's a there. I'm not fully connecting dots to where I make the complete circle. I'm just kind of throwing it out. And maybe some of you hold the key or piece to this. But what would make somebody think about it? Look how people are ridiculed, less so now, because now disclosure is more and more on the fore. But look how people are getting, you know, historically up until now, ridiculed up the wazoo if you talked about a UFO. Just now it's slowly becoming acceptable where people don't want to lock somebody up in an insane asylum. And especially if you've had real experiences or memories of things, or in your dream state, you know that there's a there too. So why would somebody of the supposed reputation of somebody like a John D. Rockefeller Jr., with a straight face, say, I must have all of these tapestries and I must display them to the public? I mean, why unicorn? You know, wouldn't you think people would laugh at him? Like, what are you doing? That's a mythical character, you know, why are we going to waste museum space for this, right? So again, there's a there. There's code in those tapestries. You know, in some tapestries, I'm not saying that one, but some people even go to the count of like, go to the extent of counting the stitching or how the knots are done. And there's, you know, can be clues and everything, of course, if you really, really look. But I'm not saying go to that level, but I'm saying some of the symbology and the themes happening in those different tapestries, what was so darn important that this guy thought that must go in a museum, right? I don't think it's just for, as they say, shits and giggles. There's meaning there. There's meaning that he wants to encode and pass along in the secret society circles, you know, on and on. And look how much stuff is out there with even more key information that are in private collections. You know, everybody knows that, right? Stuff in private collections. So this is just what we're allowed to see, what's quote unquote hidden in plain sight. And I'm making such a big deal out of it because the next suite of tapestries that we're going to look at, there's 6. And these are located, if I say it right, in the Musée de Cluny in Paris Museum. And these tapestries are called the Lady and the Unicorn, or La Dame à la Licorne, and there are 6 of them. Now, these are interesting because I think in the movie Harry Potter, in one of the rooms, they have wallpaper with this that's coming up. And I want to link this with any Tartaria friends out there. You're going to see something interesting. I'm going to hold it up and see if you catch it. Now, keep in mind the prints that I'm going to show you, I'm putting all 6 on one page. They're not the best quality, again, because of my printer, but and I was running out of ink. But I invite you to pull them up on your own where they're crisp and clear. And then you're going to see it, what I'm going to talk to you about here. Sorry, I'm just looking at the same time. They're little, I don't know why they turned out so fuzzy here. But anyway, let me show you what I'm talking about before I keep jabbering on. Now, remember that in the crest of the royal house, you know, we had the unicorn there with a crescent moon. Well, look at this imagery, okay? Here's just at a glance. We're going to be looking at these. So it's still the mille fleur technique where there's a lot of botanicals, but not as incredibly jam-packed and intense as the other, you know, tapestry series. But I want to show you, I'm going to zoom in first on detail here. So keep in mind, these go up in a museum, and they're curators who put these pieces in, and they are tasked with telling the interpretation of what's going on in these things. Sometimes it's obvious if there's text or manuscripts that go along with these things, or written documented history. Other times they're just grasping at straws. Even the most educated, quote unquote, art curators, they're trying to put the story together and weave it together, just like I'm doing, you know, in these shows with you guys on Saturdays lately. Anyway, why I'm saying that is their interpretation or their story. Like I say, it's like dream interpretation. Put 5 art critics there, or, you know, reviewers, curators, and say, okay, you know, what do you think is going on in these scenes? And some might have some overlaps and similarities, but some might have completely different interpretations. So which one are you going to put forth to the public, right? And then which one, as somebody of the public viewing, you could read the little thing that says, oh, it's this happening. And half the time when I toured museums in Europe, I'm like, that's not what's going on in that scene. You know, so again, free think, question. But here's a detail that, you know, where we're headed. So look at this unicorn. This unicorn is holding up a pole. What do you see on that pole? Again, here comes the crescent. I do not believe that that's representing night or the moon with the unicorn. I am going to talk about the link between that and Tartaria. So for those of you who don't know what Tartaria is, it's, you know, if you look online, it'll call it probably like pseudoscience, fringe theory, some crazy ass stuff. But Tartary is a real land area, let's just say. And here, where I'm going with this is I'm going to show you from the Sturgis's Illustrated Dictionary of Architecture and Building from 1901 to 1902 edition, okay? Tartary was a real place on maps, you know, written everywhere. And it's even in this book, you know, from 1901, 1902, that talks about the architecture of Tartary. So we have Tartary, which is then, you know, people are saying Tartarian. So it's basically, just to dumb it down for my own sake, to keep this simple, it's where we have old world architecture. So everyone knows if you're based in the US, you go to Europe, there's some beautiful, exquisite buildings. And you're like, wow, how come they don't build them that way anymore? That kind of a building. And there's a lot of technology on these buildings connected with the ether and energies and the whole 9 yards. But anyway, it's basically a large territory over in Europe. And I'm just trying to read their definition first. They say, see Turkistan. Okay. So anyway, just very loosely, it was a large territory that you look on these ancient maps that spanned like down into Turkey, up toward, you know, north into Russia. And it was a whole area of land with different peoples. Some said they were, you know, giant in stature. So your average height could have been, I don't know, anywhere from 8 feet, you know, or certainly over 7 feet, you know, to 9, 12 feet. And that's all very interesting because what I'm showing you in these tapestries kind of supports that. So when you look at the flags of Tartary, and sorry, I'm just trying to find a little more definition here. Let me see Turkistan. That's what I need to find. When you look at flags of Tartaria, one has like a griffin. And again, kind of reminds me of why do we have a dragon on the Welsh flag? And then there's others that show, and I think I have this on the slide coming up. Do I? I need to look at this. No, I didn't. I only had a few limited pages I could print. But if you look up Tartary, look up flags of Tartary. You'll find it even on a basic internet search. It shows like 3 crescent moons. So what else do we know? Turkistan. This says Tartary. Look at Turkistan. Turkey, in that whole part of the world, they use the crescent. They have the crescent moon and a star, or just the crescent. And so I'm going to make a case for this. And again, use your own truth detector, whether you agree with me or not, doesn't matter. I'm throwing stuff out. And the best discussions and the best getting to truth sometimes is when we have subtly or more vigorously different points of view. and that we can discuss them intelligently and ponder things of why or why not we accept or reject what a current, narrative is telling us. So here, let me look up. If I can't get to this too far, if I can't get to what I was looking for, I will put it in the description area below or somehow otherwise clarify maybe in the next show. Yeah, okay. Turkistan. Let me just see. Yeah, I mean, it extends loosely. You've got Persia, the Kingdom of Persia, Afghanistan, and then moving up, some maps show it toward Russia. Anyway, I think if you're here, you know what I'm talking about. But it's just a territory off to the east where on a lot of the old maps, there's kingdoms everywhere, castles everywhere. Anyway, what I want to say is that's, again, known to be a giant statuesque, physiologically people in those areas at a certain time, up until maybe the late 1700s. Then there was some kind of a reset, whether you believe in a mud flood or something else. Something happened on the planet, and these much taller people were no longer with us, let's just say, and now we're all like whatever height we are now. And the reason why I'm saying this is something clicked for me last night as I was looking at these tapestries, and I'm going to show you. Here, I'll just show you. Sorry, these are fuzzy. It's going to be annoying. But here's the Lady in the Unicorn series, okay, in the French Museum. So in this case, they say, whoever did the interpretation, and I'm going to question it, that one of them is about sight, one of them is about touch. They're calling them the five senses. We have hearing because there's some type of musical instrument, taste because she's tasting something, and smell because she apparently is smelling something. So apparently it does talk about the senses. But again, I think much more is going on in here. Now, we have the unicorn, we have the lion, we have other figures in here too. So let me first show you this, and then I'll tell you why I think there's a Tartarian connection here, which just really fascinated me. Sorry, we'll start with sight. I apologize, I'm not great here. Okay, so just go with me where I'm talking about. So sight is here, and then we have the touch. And if you notice, they always have, they're holding like this pole. So in one scene, it's the lion holding it. Then it's the lady. And then, it might be the unicorn. But look what's prominent everywhere is these three, blue background with the three crescents on them, right? And there's different kind of foliage. Can't remember if this is the series where a monkey shows up. All kinds of weird stuff's happening here. Here's hearing. Okay, so you can kind of see on the table there's some kind of harp-like thing. And now in this case, where it says hearing, you've got a lion holding the pole and the unicorn. Okay, then we have taste, and now they're making even more of holding up the poles. And then we have smell. So again, once you go to internet search, you'll find, a lot more, clarity and detail in here. So what I ask you is when we get to taste, and let me just fold this. Okay, I'm going to ask you a question. Let's see if you see what I see. Or maybe you see yet again something else that's interesting. Okay, so look at this. Okay. So we have the unicorn, we have the lion, and we have this woman, and we have like a handmaiden there. Okay. Now the handmaiden is not some tiny kid, and is not a little person or a dwarf or any of that nature. She's kneeling a little bit, but I don't know. The woman seems really tall, because she's even like taller than the unicorn and the lion. And there's a better panel. When you look at this on your own, I think you'll see it better. Hang on, there was another. Okay, here she's standing. This is a better one, better example. So here her handmaiden, who is normal size, is standing, serving her. Okay, again, that's not a little child. Look how tall she is, the lady in the center, or central figure. Look how tall she is. Again, that's a regular sized woman next to her. And so I think that I have just decoded, I may be wrong, but I feel I'm right. I think I've just decoded that this lady in here is one of the Tartarian figures who is, really tall. At the same time, there would have coexisted smaller versions of people too. But the giveaway for me is these crescent moons, again, tied with the area of the world like Turkey with the crescents. That's predominantly their symbol. Anyway, have fun. Maybe look into this on your own if it interests you. there's so much going on in here too. And with the botanicals, here's yet another series of tapestries, which has different kinds of fruit trees and things happening. So I'm not going to like decode that further, but I was happy to tie it to Tartaria with those crescents and her height. So I think there's something there. But let me know if you think the same, or you getting some other kind of vibe off of those. Oh, and Rita says, yeah, when the time is right, yeah, we'll talk about looking at Pegasus. Will come through. Oh, and hi, Lake Superior Skywatcher and Nature Lover. Thanks for being here. She's still here. If you're still here, I know it's late. She was talking about the horn of wisdom with the unicorn, and that's true too. So I'm going to now talk about some things. Let's see. Do I have images for it? I'll be going back to the images in a second. And I only have 2 more pages left of images. But when looking at this whole unicorns true topic, I also was looking at, as I mentioned, a lot of the imagery was coming from Garden of Eden. There's so many. I just put like a couple. But the unicorns in the Garden of Eden here too. Okay. They have the Adam and Eve figure standing there, and the unicorn and the lion are present. I don't think they're going to be drawing mythological things when they're showing a setting as important as the Garden of Eden or the creation stories here. But what's interesting is this, again, the unicorn, what I was talking about earlier, has some kind of relationship with the water. And what do we know about the Garden of Eden? Supposedly it was situated amongst 4 rivers. Now, for me, I'm going to go a little off topic, but it's also still topic. This is just my opinion, and I'm going to express it, my channel. I've never been on board with the word sin in the Garden of Eden, that whole story, and what sin is supposedly defined as. I was still something about this river and the Garden of Eden depictions and the unicorn being there. Something was coming through strongly that sin does not mean what we think. And I was looking at old Sanskrit, and Sindhu, so S-I-N, but then also with Sindhu or Sindhu, means to go or to move, or to drive away or to go away. So to me, that seems more appropriate as far as the definition, of sin, because a lot of things become, English centric when some of these decodes, we need to go back further to ancient Greek, to Persian, old Persian, to go back to, what do we call it? The tablets, I'm missing the word right now, cuneiform. We need to go back to these much more ancient cultures where the birth of the words would have been there, even before Old English or even some of the Germanic or Nordic languages. So to me, some of the oldest language, I think, is Pali or Sanskrit, maybe Theravada. Buddhism has some texts in there. I forget what it's called exactly. I think just Theravada. But anyway, I like the idea of the sin part relating to the fountainhead or source of all of these waters. And what do we see? Like the picture of Venus, what is it? Venus de Malu coming out of the water and being birthed out of that. And you could say that the origin of man, is birthed out of the waters. And so there's just a lot there to it. I know I'm going off a little bit, but I felt that important to mention. Now, the unicorn for me can, and some say, oh, the unicorn in those Garden of Eden depictions are talking about the Christ figure or the Christ consciousness, or that's the embodiment of like the Christ figure. But I don't really feel that. I think because they keep pairing this, the unicorn in some of these images with a virgin or a pure woman. Some even have the woman, I don't want to kind of describe it, but nurturing the unicorn, let's just say. It's really all very odd. And so what I was talking about at the very beginning is the unicorn being a bridge, as is rainbow and the yew tree. I'm getting a sense that the unicorn is us, is the spark of life that comes in, onto the planet, and is the bridge between us and the heavenly realm, because the horn is connecting with the ethers, with that which cannot be seen. It's also totally pure as we come in as the beautiful, pure spark of life. So I think there's some kind of connection there. So I don't know. I'm still in the process of kind of mulling this around, and there's still a picture that wants to be kind of more put together. But these are just like the infant, pun intended, steps of trying to put something together here, because it's very odd how the unicorn is there every time. Now, the lion could also, if we're going to go biblical with this, might be representing the opposite, of that Christ figure, might be the darker influence or whatever that's present here, but that always is in a pair of the duality, We have the good and we have the evil, always present. And the unicorn could be the alchemist as far as embodying the sun and the moon, and the balance of it all. So there's a lot there, and I'm going to leave it at that for now. Let's see, I covered these things. Let's see if there's anything else. I have notes here. Oh, of interesting note is that some of the descriptions of unicorn, we think, oh, happy, nice, friendly unicorn, very docile. Look at the woman, she was petting it. Well, there's also accounts where it was downright fierce, like don't mess, don't mess with unicorn. And I could see that too, because that's like us now, seeking the truth. We've been very patient people if you're on the truth seeking path. But there's times too where you say, hey, don't cross the line here. I may be kind and loving, but I'm not a pushover, and so that unicorn also embodied that both sides. It's not just going to sit there and let you capture it. You're going to have one hell of a fight on your hands if you try, right? That kind of thing. So we're called to be fierce, but also, there's gentle power and then there's like fierce power, and then they're both valid. Let's see. Oh, and then just one more fun thing. I think I just have, a couple fun things, and I'll wrap up the unicorn portion. So movies. I'm sure a lot of you might know way more movies than I do, but there's a lot of unicorn movies or unicorn popping up in different movies. We know Pegasus, as Rita mentioned, that immediately calls to mind the 1980s Clash of the Titans, where that was featured. Pegasus was featured prominently with Perseus at the end there. But other movies, Harry Potter, I'm not a huge fan, but just because, they're well done, the movies. I didn't read the books, but it just had such a dark edge. That's just not me. For those who love it, I don't want to rain on your parade, but, thinking of rainbows, but, it's just a little too dark for my taste. And, but what do they talk about? They talk about the unicorn, and one of these like bad, not Voldemort. I don't know if it was Voldemort, the all evil character in that series, or some other kind of shady entity. I forget what they're called. Was drinking the blood of a unicorn in the forest, and the unicorn blood. One of the good figures, protagonists in the story, put the finger on it, held it up, because there's a trail of silver. It looked like mercury on the ground. And he goes, oh, that's unicorn blood. So the negative entity was drinking of the unicorn for like everlasting life or rejuvenation or whatever. So in that movie, they're giving you a little hint drop that unicorns had that, kind of restorative ability, kind of a magic about them to heal. Then you have, for tongue-in-cheek, I put it in my post section, we have the very intro scene. If you know this ultra cringy humor, excellent movie, but you gotta be able to sustain cringe for the whole thing, is Napoleon Dynamite. And he's in a classroom and he's drawing, as soon as they open the scene of the movie, he's drawing unicorns, right? And he gives a very passionate plea and book report about saving Nessie and Loch Ness. So it's all very interesting. Done with a little bit of humor, but also I think there are little hint drops in that, his speech. Then there's things like The Last Unicorn, and a very kind viewer of the channel, Sarah T. She actually gave me a link, and I put it in my post section, of an artist that was talking about some of the very poetic imagery and phraseology in that movie, as she is doing some paintings and gouache and wash of unicorns. Anyway, there's more things, I'm sure. Of course, we know modern pop culture. We've got unicorns on book bags and, you name it, clothes, especially for little kids. And they totally embrace it. So I think it's something that makes people happy, and there's something all very magical about it. Okay, and then I'll sign off on this part with, just for fun, they say that baby unicorns are called either foals, sparkles, or shimmers. And that a group of unicorns together is called a blessing, which I think is pretty cool, instead of a herd. Okay. All right, now we'll go to the rainbows, and this one and the rest of this show will pick up the pace a bit. I know I spent a long time there, but the interesting thing is there's a common thread between the unicorns, the rainbows, and the yew wood, also with the Garden of Eden, also that they're all bridges. But anyway, I'll start off with, if any of you are soccer fans, with the whole FIFA thing going on right now, I'll just mention too, one last thing on rainbow. First thing on rainbow. Sorry, this is all blurring together. Just for fun, if you know soccer, there's a trick move in soccer called the rainbow flick. And I'll put a little short video in the post section after the show, but you let the ball kind of roll up your leg and then you kind of flick it over you. And as you're running, it's making an arc and you catch up with it. So that's the rainbow move. I just thought it was funny. It came to my attention since everything's on my mind about rainbows. So what do we know? We know that number 7 is big with rainbows. The prime or main colors they attribute it to the rainbow is what? The acronym they tell us, at least in the U.S., Western part of the world, is ROY, G-BIV. A little trick, what is it, mnemonic device to remember it, is red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Well, in fact, there are so many nuances to a rainbow. There's probably, somebody said millions of colors. I don't know that many, but there are plenty, but we just can't perceive them with our current vision. Where we're at right now. Now, some people talk about with the shift going on from moving from a 3D matrix world to heavenly realms, basically choosing love over fear. That's the difference. That eventually, because we're all seeking that way, we might get activated where what was once called junk DNA, we know is not junk. There's nothing junk about our beautiful, amazing bodies, whatever shape they're in. We are magical like that unicorn. That's why I was drawing a parallel or analogy that we are that unicorn in the Garden of Eden. We are what comes next, and we are magical and pure and connect with the God spark. I mean, we're the God spark connecting in, upward, following the horn of the unicorn to the heavenly realms. And we're the bridge between that world and this one. And now we're saying, okay, we all want to go toward that one, please. Heavenly realms where it's nicer, without these negatives, war and harming of people and all of that. We want a more beautiful world. And so with that, we have the rainbow. We talk about 7. Okay, I'm getting a little off track here. Also, the 7 main chakras in the spiritual sense of the body. We have, again, the same colors. I'm going to pull up a little visual here. A lot of you may know this already, but this is for anyone who might not. Okay. Let me go here. Okay, so here, it'll take a minute to focus in. It should, though. Give me a minute. Is it going to read it? Usually it kicks in. Here we go. So here we go. The rainbow of the body. We'll start at the bottom. The root is, the reddish oranges. Then we get to the sacral. Then we get to the solar plexus, which is like just above the abdomen there. That's when we get that gut feeling. We have the heart, which is pink and green. The throat, which is blue. The third eye, which is violet. And the crown, third eye indigo and crown, violet. So that's the rainbows, the body with the chakras. Now, as another part of that chakra means wheel or circle of life. That's the meaning of chakras. So we have these energy wheels that supposedly spin in our body, coming along at those points. There's also things happening up along the spine. There's also a thing called nadis, which they're like 72,000, they say, that distribute prana, or good energy, and breath of life kind of into the body. And nadi has, N-A-D-I, nadi has an etymological relationship to river. So again, it's kind of like a river of energy. We got a river, we got circles of life going on. And all of this to me is also going back to the Garden of Eden. It's like all related, that is like the paradise, and that we ourselves are that rainbow. If you look at that chart, it's showing the rainbow going up like within us. And that's why I keep going back to like we are the rainbow or the unicorn in that Garden of Eden picture. Anyhow, let me move along. We know there's a lot of in popular culture songs about rainbows and movies that involve rainbows. Of course, we've got like, for better or for worse, there's a lot of negative code in it, but Wizard of Oz, prominent, what she's singing about somewhere over the rainbow. We have another one. The more I looked into the lyrics, I'm like, ooh, there's a lot of code I don't like in there. But Kermit the Frog, he sings Rainbow Connection. I think you can probably already hear his voice singing it if you've heard it. But anyway, lots of things going on in pop culture with them too. Obviously, like I said, little kids draw instinctively rainbows. They'll be drawing them on the sidewalks. They'll draw them anywhere, and they're very happy, right? Now, I have a question, like I sometimes do on these shows. I have a question for everybody. And, think of it if you want, tune it out if you like, doesn't matter. But think about the first time you ever remember seeing a rainbow. So coming in on this planet as your little beautiful God sparks that we all are, you pop in, you're in a crib, or maybe you're a toddler. When's the first time you remember a rainbow? I'll tell you my story. I remember, and there could be other times, but just what you remember right now, like consciously remember. I remember riding along on a little tricycle, like a beautiful, like teal turquoise metallic tricycle color. And I was riding down an asphalted, unfortunately, driveway. And at the very bottom, it dipped down. So after a rain, there would be a pooling or puddling of water down there. Now, I could have used a unicorn to purify this water because I remember being fascinated. I mean, now I'm kind of in horror, but fascinated that there was like an oil slick from the car. Car had dripped the gasoline or oil into the puddle. It's called runoff these days, right? From a car. And so, but there was like this rainbow, in that oil slick. And I remember just being fascinated looking at it in there. Now, also, there was the ice cream truck. That's probably another memory going by. And I remember seeing on the back, there's a big bucket of rainbow sherbet for anyone who still remembers sherbet. I think now the classier version is sorbet, but sorbet doesn't, give you the rainbow colors, right? And back then they were real rainbow colors. They gave you a lot of them. Now they cheapen it up and gave you like 3 different ones. But, there would have been like orange, lime, lemon, raspberry, strawberry, whatever. Now I think they just give you like 3 of those flavors and call it rainbow sherbet. On top of all of the shrinkflation and everything else they talk about giving us smaller portions, they're pulling that as well. Oh, Rita says, let's see. Rita says, unable to remember, but 80s TV show, My Little Pony. Yeah, that's true. I think also had unicorns and Pegasus. Yeah, I think you're right. That I totally missed that. That was just after my cartoon watching days. I think I only ended up with the last one was the Smurfs because I had a little brother who watched that. And so I kind of missed that whole era, but I I've seen the artwork and stuff. So yeah, I remember just seeing, ponies, and I think you're right. So that's something we'll look into. And then Rita says 80s show, Rainbow Bright. LOL. That's right. I vaguely remember that too. Well, Rita, maybe you're on a roll, girl. I think you're like giving us the next, maybe you're giving us the next theme. So we'll look into more pop culture and TV shows and things with Pegasus and rainbow stuff too. Okay. Then let's see what else. I think also, candy. Oh gosh, poor us as a generation. What did they bring in? Candy. Get us hooked and addicted to sugar. So that would mean all of your junk food cereals. And do you know, even to this day, where you take a cereal, I'm not promoting any brands or anything. There's a cultural reference here. But cereal in the US, like Fruit Loops, bright toxic color rainbow of colors. Okay. You go to a place like Germany, you get Fruit Loops, they're all muted. They look even almost like a little bit of grayish. And the first time I tried some over there, I was like, oh, we don't have the colors. But I'm like, oh, it's much healthier than whatever toxic crap they're putting in the US cereals. So I remember my first cereal box sitting there, and unfortunately, our parents didn't know any better. They're just giving us all this sugar stuff. It was the latest thing, would have just been common. But I remember there was a cereal. Some of you out there still might remember it. It's very obscure, but it was called Kaboom. So Kaboom. I think it had an exclamation point on it, and there's, I think, a weird-looking circus type clown on it that freaked me the hell out. But there was something very addictive about that cereal. I remember I liked the cereal. And then later came all the other toxic stuff, not as rainbow-like. But anyway, Fruit Loops is a big one. Also, all the candy, the junk candies that came out in the convenience stores too. So there was like Rainbow gum. And it came in, it still comes, I think, to this day. They still sell it in a package where it has, the gum balls all like in a row of the rainbow. Then there were now and laters. There was some like assorted variety of colors. There were bottle caps with all different colors, again, candy. And then we get into what? All the hours and hours as little kids, we used crayons, actual wax crayons. And they had all very interesting names of the colors, right? I still remember two. I remember one I didn't like so much. It was kind of a love-hate relationship with it. It was called Cornflower Blue. And then there was another like kind of like a melon colored one I liked, but now I can't remember the name of it. But I remember just like staring at them forever. All these colors. Anyway, so that was just my question. And thanks thanks for playing along, Rita. So let's see. Oh, and then I'll just wrap up with a couple of things and show you some images. So then we're seeing, what are we finding now? Some people are staring up in the skies lately, and they're starting to see more and more spectrums around and halos around the sun and also the moon. And if you look very closely, some days you'll even see little auras around, little sparkles happening within the tree leaves. And you'll see like little rainbow flecks and sparkles happening. So something is changing with the light quality and everything on our planet. I will give also a little shout out over to interesting YouTube channel, Exploring Rainbows in Detail. Some very interesting angles, little wink, wink, and angels happening over there at FPV Angel. So very interesting research, in-depth research by him and his team, and worth checking it out. And again, with any of this stuff, it's about taking different pieces and learning things, and taking what, as they say, what resonates, what resonates, what clicks with you, and toss in the rest. Or you may find, hey, I totally want to dive into that more and be a part of that too, whatever it is, right? So anyway, it's interesting stuff happening over there, worth looking into and see what you read on all of that. Then what do we have? The rainbow. Okay, one of the most iconic. Forget about when you were little, at one point or another. Well, it still applies when you're little. If you went to any of these Sunday schools or whatever, you would have learned about Noah's Ark, and what was the rainbow but God's promise that they would find land, and all of that. So very iconic there. I already mentioned the Norse, the Rainbow Bridge with the Bifrost, it's called. Connecting, Midgard, Asgard above with Midgard down here, heavenly realm with the, mortal realm. And we did talk about some other things. Now, Iris, I will show the Olympian gods used Iris to deliver messages down to mortals here. And she apparently was kind of like a hand servant to Hera with some of those messages, mainly, supposedly. So I'm just going to show you an image of her as depicted. I don't know who the artist is, but here's just a depiction of Iris. Now, I think she was actually a key messenger in some of the wars and the battles. I don't know if it was between the Olympians and the Giants and the Titans or what, but worth looking into. I think she even had a role to play in the Trojan War, but I'm a little fuzzy on all of that, so you might want to look that up on your own. This is a color wash, I think by Constable in the UK, an old watercolor, drawing depicting Stonehenge with a rainbow. It's all washed out. It never did show all the bright colors, I think. I've actually held that. I think it's in the archives of the Victoria and Albert Museum over there in the UK, if I'm not mistaken. But actually, you're allowed to go in and actually pull these out of a folder and look at some of these, pretty well-known works. I was pretty astonished I was able to do that. That they let the public do that, not me. But here's a depiction of the world tree, tree of life there, more or less the world tree in the Norse. So here's that rainbow bridge, the Bifrost coming down, connecting Asgard with the Midgard. Okay. Here is this, what I've talked about, this museum somehow has this installation where the rainbow comes through. I'm not sure how they created that. I just happened to see it. So that might be something any of you might want to look more into. And then over here, these two, let me fold this, are references to some of my previous shows where I did my sky observations and caught UFO craft that is projecting out spectrum. So that's part of their quote-unquote camouflage. We'll talk about the one on the bottom first. So this is horizontally split. So above my pen is one image, down below is the other. So here, actually, this is taken by a friend of the channel. The friend of the channel was in a totally different part of the city as me, but not too far, like probably within 5 miles radius. Saw the same thing that I saw, like 5 miles away, maybe 3 miles away. Looking, both of us looking to the west, we saw the exact same thing. He took a picture, I took a picture. And this thing was, it's a craft. It's too perfect and pure. It's just perched on the top of another cloud. And it was self-emanating a rainbow. Now, this one above, these are enhanced views. I have the originals on my channel as well, and the original shows I'll reference. But this one was a horizontal. I mean, look at it. It's horizontal rainbow. So this isn't like catching the bottom of one of those big halos. This was just flat out a self-generating luminous rainbow effect, but it was horizontal and it was massive. So, and there's a lot of interference cloud cloaking happening above. This is a pure triangle here, backlit cloaking in there. So I know there's objects involved. And so that was just part of a huge cloaking craft that could emanate that rainbow energy. Plain and simple. I mean, I know it. And if you look at the shows, I give you much more detail and I walk you through that whole scene. Let's see. Rita says, oh, yeah, that's right. The rainbow spiral lollipop. Oh, my gosh, the quintessential lollipop that goes like this and it's all different colors. How awesome is that? Is the first that I remember. You know, I might have remembered one of those too now that you mention it very early on. She said, it looks so pretty, but I wasn't allowed to eat one because all the sugar, LOL. Yeah, you know, I always like looking at them, but like how you even start, it just didn't feel like it'd be a fun thing to take on. I was about 4 years old when I saw the lollipops. I think I was too, now that you mention it. Thanks for bringing up that memory. Okay, let's see. I think that's it. You know, I had a lot more I was going to talk about on some of these things, but I think I will wrap it up there and just say one more thing. What do we also know if you have pets? I don't have any, but you know, they talk about the rainbow bridge. So if your animals are going to transition or leave this realm, they talk about the rainbow bridge. And supposedly, this ties into unicorn. I was reading somewhere that supposedly unicorns greet your little loved ones and take them to the other side, or they can. And I think that's a beautiful, beautiful thing to think of. I would like to think that a pet of mine would be greeted by a unicorn. That'd be really cool. Okay, now we're going to get to the yew tree part. And the yew tree also has this connection to bridge. Like I said, the rainbows, the unicorns, the yew tree itself, the YEW tree, has the connection. So it's known to be an ancient tree. So one of the oldest ones is 5,000 years old. Again, this is what I can, get off the internet. Some are 3,000, some are 4,000. So if you have a tree, it's kind of like an evergreen tree. I'm going to show you in a minute what the needles look like and all of that. But think of like an evergreen tree that can grow and die and grow and die. So it grows and dies on itself repeatedly, and then it keeps expanding out. It can create these tunnels. It can like go in all different directions. Pretty wild. There's a lot of ties to it. So like in the Norse culture, like we were talking about their tree. Okay, this world tree. Some say that that was really a yew tree. Other tellings say it was an ash tree. I think it could be a yew because, again, the yew is supposed to be one of the oldest and talks about death and birth and the cycle of life, which a world tree, I think, would do. In the Garden of Eden, there's supposedly two trees, not just one. There was, we all know about the one with the fruit, but there was a tree of life and there was a tree of knowledge. So I think one of those trees also could be the yew tree once we, look at it a little bit more. Now, the yew tree is supposedly very toxic, poisonous. It has some red berries. I think the berries themselves you could eat, but most people say don't because it's too tied in with the toxins. Don't risk it. So that does have little berries and it has some needles. It also has ancient ties in with the Celtic and the Druids who saw the yew tree as sacred. They planted it supposedly close to their temples because there were rituals involving death and rebirth with this tree. They say that, I don't know if this part's true, but just what I was just taking a cursory look at is that these yew trees in the UK and Wales, actually Wales supposedly has the oldest one. I forget the name of the place that it's at. But in Wales, there's supposedly the oldest yew tree at 5,000 years plus or minus. There are others. One's Fordingle in Perthshire, I think, in the UK, and that one I think is 3,000 or 4,000 years old. What's 1,000 years amongst friends? I mean, once we're getting that old, does it matter? But they're just estimating. And so some say that the trees were there first before the buildings came, like the churchyard buildings. I don't know if that's true. Some of them, these locations in the UK, there's standing stones nearby. In some of these locations too, all of these locations where there's a church built around, regardless of which came first, the church or the yew, there's cemeteries all around it. Now, some say, the yew is there to ward off cattle from messing with the cemetery, the graves. I don't know if that's true. It doesn't kind of sound plausible to me. But whatever the case, there was some kind of relation where the dead were buried near the yew tree. Maybe there was some type of thing, again, the peoples understood that the tree represents death, but also life and being born again. So it kind of makes sense the tree would be there. Plus, it's a sacred tree. The wood properties probably feel very special too. So here, I'm going to show some pictures and then I'll talk about a few more facts, maybe as I go along here. So this one I'm not going to fold over. I'll just hold up. It might be a little hard to tell what's going on, but let's risk it. We'll chance it. So here we go. In this corner, this is one of the, I think this is, if I'm not mistaken, one of you can correct me if you know this site, but I think this is the Fordingle one. I think that's the name of it. But anyway, this would be the yew tree. And the yew tree, apparently, like the bark, the wood dies, it grows on itself again. And I think it kind of plants down and like exponentially walks or grows. I think they even call it like a walking tree, because look at this tunnel of all the wood. And I think what happens is it starts to extend down and starts to really grow massive. Now the needles are like this. It's evergreen. Can my pen reach? Yeah. So we got little berries, toxic berries in the needles. Okay. Now we're getting into over here. Sorry. Not trying to make anybody seasick. Here's just another configuration of what it can look like. I think in my post section, I put another, a view of it so you could see the tops of it. But anyway, we just get this really ancient look, right? Because it is ancient. Then we have yew bushes. So this is an example from Leeds Castle in the UK. And these are actually made of this, but in the bush variety. So we've seen that in many movies and things, of these mazes that people are walking in there. Again, even in Harry Potter, there's a big scene, right? Again, I'm not a fan of that movie, but they're running through the bushes there. Now, a very famous maze is at Hampton Court Palace. And it was supposedly planted there in the 1600s. Again, I don't know the timing on all these buildings anymore. I don't think we're given the real history. But apparently in the 1600s, it's known as the oldest surviving puzzle maze, they call it, like the true puzzle maze, you're trying to get through to the center. Now, mazes, happened obviously in ancient Greek and with the Egyptians, but the planted variety where you run around like that, they say the oldest one was the late 1600s at Hampton Court Palace. Now, they say the original plants there, though, were made of, were planted, were hornbeam. I don't know what that looks like. I didn't look that up. I just found that fact out recently. And then they were replanted with yew bushes for whatever reason. Now, supposedly at the Leeds Castle, the one I showed you here, supposedly, I think that's over, let me find my little fact on my sheet. Yes, at Leeds, that's over 2,400 yew bushes for this snazzy little maze. That's a lot of bushes if you planted anything. So supposedly it took, 2,400 to make that happen. Okay. The yew tree, the Latin name is Taxus baccata. It has strong associations in symbology with death, immortality, protection, known as a bridge between the living and the dead. So that's what I'm talking about. The yew is also a bridge. Connection to the afterlife and transformation. And of course, it speaks of rebirth with the evergreen. Now, the yew tree can be said, you can make it into wands. And in the Harry Potter movie, I'll reference that again because supposedly Voldemort had a yew wand. So it's kind of speaking of the command over life and death. And Harry Potter had the twin wand to it, but it was made of a different wood. Any Potter fans out there, you know what his wand was made of? I didn't. I had to look it up. He didn't have a yew wand, but he had the brother wand to the one that the All Evil guy did. And it was made of holly wood. Okay, little fun fact, maybe not so fun, but a fact nonetheless for that movie. Okay, so anyway, I just want to talk about too, just again, these parallels, these themes of being a bridge, whether you're a rainbow bridge, a unicorn bridge, or this yew bridge. It all connects somehow, all connects with magical, the moving between the seen and unseen, and a lot of very interesting things. So let me just see. Yeah, I think that's all I wanted to talk about the yew. And then I'm going to show you, there's a really nice book. If you don't know about the OM, that's the tree alphabet. And the U is the 20th letter of that tree alphabet. And the tree alphabet, you read it from the bottom up, like climbing a tree. And I'm trying to get to a page where I can show you. So this is an example of the tree alphabet. And the very last one is U. And at the bottom, you'll see it begins with an I. And that is because I think it's called, I went down a place that I can't finish. Hang on. On the U, what is it called? Oh, yeah, I have it. The U in the language of the Celtic tree alphabet here, the OM, it's OGHAM. It's spelled IDHO. So I think it's like Edo is the real name of U. Okay, YEW. Anyway, there's different charts. So I'm going to read something here from this little tree alphabet. The 20th letter is the U. Also, you'll find charts if the OM is something new to you, the whole world of the tree alphabet. It's kind of fun because there's so much good meanings behind all of these trees. And this is a chart, little wheel format that shows you all the trees. So, some are more easy to read, others have more of their kind of Celtic roots. But you see what the different trees look like. And the U is in there as well. Okay. And let's see, Rita says ancient peoples always made longbows with yew wood, had high composite and elasticity. Yeah, you know what? Thank you. You're right. That's some of these churchyards. When you go around looking for the yew stuff in these old churchyards, one of the churchyards was showing like a stone that had all of these strike marks, and they were saying that's where people were sharpening their bows. But very good point. Yes, they used them for their bows. Supposedly very good wood. I will take their word for it, but it sounds cool. Okay. Let's see. So if anyone's interested on the oracle card side of things, there's this book called Roots Insights from the Tree Alphabet of Old Ireland. This is by Olivia Wiley. And I think she works in like the landscaping field and has a lot of knowledge on the old Celtic stuff. So she created this pretty deck, really pretty. And this happens to be representing the yew. So if you look at the shape of it, she's making the letter out of the plants. So the 20th letter has the vertical and then these horizontals. So the message on that one is let go. Let me just see, which is, makes sense for the you, because if you're needing to transition, you got to let go of the old. And I think a big message coming through right now, and that is, yeah, we have to sometimes have the death of the old so that we can step into our new life. And it doesn't feel good usually at the time. But then once we do kind of make that step and drop the baggage behind, we do feel less burdened and can feel more free to fly like an arrow flying through. Let's see, we can like step away from the massive tree that's just been growing the same place forever and fly into new territory and explore new things, even if it's out of our comfort zone, right? Just looking through in this book to just see if there's any other little message. Oh, this is good. I'm going to read their message for it. Don't take my word for it. Let's read what she says. So the message of that card is there's a time for letting go. The end is not your enemy. Let go with grace. And that is a good message. The end is not your enemy. There's a quote in another movie where they talk about some people are looking at life like it's a dragon you've got to slay. And the more that you're trying to fight things, the harder it is. And sometimes it is just getting into that nice, easy, not easy, but the ease of surrendering, of letting go. It doesn't mean you have to give up on things completely, but it just means give in to a gentler way. And I'm experiencing that and reminding myself of that every day myself right now in this moment. Having a big death of the old phase. I already had it like last year, and it's coming back around again. It's a process. Things will keep bubbling up to be let go. So that's a good message. Let go. And if you're having trouble, because I do too, sometimes you just say, God, again, your team, I've said before, can be your ancestors, people recently transitioned, God, Jesus, your angels, your guardian angelics, guardian ETs, even galactic family. Just say, hey, I'm having issues here. Please, kindly step in, help me let go. Love, be here present, help me let this go. And a lot of times we will get assistance. We have to just actively just remember to ask for it out loud or just in your mind. Anyway, I'll just show you the character again one more time now that I told you what she was doing here. So see this? See that there? Okay. So that symbol, you see the horizontals and the vertical, and that is what she was, echoing here. I'm not trying to cover it up there. You can see there. Sorry, it's always like reverse world when I hold these things up. So anyway, very cleverly done, nicely done deck. And very pretty. Okay, so I think that's all from like my slides that I show and discussion part of things. I do have, so if anybody isn't into the oracle part of things, I'm just going to hold up a couple more decks and talk about anything connected with unicorn, rainbow, or I don't think I have any with you would, but I have unicorn and rainbow. And there's just like 3 decks I was going to hold up some things. So now's a great time if you want to move along. And if not, I'm not going to make this too long. I see the time. So I wanted to bring up too with the rainbows. I didn't talk about different cultures have different things. So we've got the Native Americans talk about the rainbow warrior prophecy, where all of us will come together from, all different colors of the rainbow and kind of come together in unity. There's also, you get down into kind of Southern Mexican and South American. I don't want to say lore, but what I'm missing the word right now. But in their shamanistic practices or whatever, in their legends and lores, they have the rainbow serpent. Now, there's an interesting card deck. If you don't know it, it's the Mystical Shaman Oracle, and there's a nice guidebook to it. And so they don't have rainbow serpent all as one, but they do have the rainbow and they have serpent. So number 41 or number 5 is the rainbow, and I'm going to hold that up. It's a really pretty card. You can check that out. Just nicely done. That's the back side of these cards. And then we have the serpent is number 46, 10, or 1. Again, nicely done. And let me just look through the book. I have bookmarks in here to make it go quicker. Let me just see if anything jumps out at me to read on either one of these or not. Let me just see. I guess I'll read a little bit. It says the essence. The rainbow symbolizes the 7 steps of the true spiritual path, which manifests as the colors of the 7 chakras. In the Himalayas, the rainbow body is seen as the full realization of our essence. The rainbow also represents the bridge between the physical and the spiritual worlds. At the end of our lives, we can journey across the rainbow bridge to the highest heavenly realms. When the rainbow appears, it is an affirmation that all is well and that you are in the right relationship with spirit. And then it has a little segment that says the invitation. The rainbow tells you that at the end of the storm is near. Persevere and remember that it is darkest just before the dawn. Do not give up hope. Things are about to take a positive turn. Listen for the morning rooster that announces the coming of the dawn even while the night is still darkest. But do not claim victory yet or let your guard down fully. So then there's, I might as well read one more. If we had gotten this card in the reverse, which we didn't, but let's just say if this were upside down, there's a section of this book called The Medicine. So like, the answer, the remedy for what you're going through. And it says, don't get caught in pursuit of the illusion of the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Find the treasure now, in the moment, by coming into right relationship with those around you. All your gifts are at hand, so obvious you may have missed them. Be true with your intentions and do not be led astray by daydreams. And what I want to say about that too is what I'm being reminded of is your golden moments in life. I'm of a certain age where I look back now several decades, and what I was in at the moment seemed really hard and tough. And now I look back at it and I go, wow, you know what it was. However, that was a pretty golden moment because mixed in with some of the hardships were some really incredible experiences. And I did know they were at the time, but, the emotional aspect, just, there can be something magical there, but, our emotions get tied up, or if we're, sad or brought down into negative emotions and vibrations, we might miss something really beautiful there. And okay, it's still a gift if you recognize it later, like looking back now several decades and be like, wow, that was a kick-ass experience, not in a good way. But hey, I never would have experienced this if I didn't go through that. I can see that now. And so anyway, I just want to say that, wherever we are right now, look around. If it feels tough, trudging like through the muck, remember though too, that look around, there might be something you don't want to miss that you would call a golden moment. You might as well enjoy it now than looking back decades later, right? Okay. And let me just see, I don't know if there's anything to read on the serpent or not. So I was trying to get to rainbow serpent. Oh, you know what? I will read it once. I'll just read the top part, the essence. The serpent is the life force of Mother Earth. The coiled serpent of the Kundalini brings passion, healing, and renewal. She offers us the fruit of the tree of knowledge in the Garden of Eden and reminds us to shed the past the way she sheds her tired old skin. Serpent comes to offer you the forbidden fruit that will set your passion and creativity free. Okay, so yeah, to me that just means let nothing get in our way. Don't have any obstacles, whether, and especially not ones that we put in front of ourselves. Let's see. Okay, now this series, I'm just going to hold them up and show you one card at a time and not say anything. There's a lot of beautiful unicorn imagery in this one deck, even though it's called Angel Tarot. Okay, it's called Angel, but there's a whole section of beautiful unicorns in here. So I'm going to just hold these up a little bit for anybody who really wants to see it. And here we go. And again, apologies for any glare. I think I got it if I do it this way. But there we've got the Knight of Air. I just read the top. Intelligent, decisive, idealistic, tireless. But you see that beautiful unicorn in there? It's really nice. And then these two of air. That's kind of like stalemate energy. But that's I'm just showing you for the illustration point of view. If you're into unicorns, you might want to, and you like decks. There's a bunch in the mix. What do we say? A whole group of them instead of a herd of unicorns. It's a blessing. So that's a whole blessing of unicorns. Yeah, this one. Page of Air, logical, honest, impulsive, curious. King of Air, brilliant, impartial, professional, diplomatic. Bunch of unicorns there too. So I just think they've done a really beautiful job with illustrating them on this series here. Four of Air. It's going to be sure to rest and replenish and honor yourself. If you need to rejuvenate your body, make sure you're getting enough rest. Even if you can't sleep, even if you just kind of lay down. A lot of us are having a really hard time with sleep these days. The energies are really changing on this planet. Time is flying by fast as well. And so if you are fortunate enough to be in a position where if you start getting a wave of tiredness and you can do it, definitely honor that and lay down. A lot of people are also getting what they call downloads. So you might feel like, why can't I stay awake? My eyes just want to shut. Sometimes that is a call to just go lay down on a couch or wherever you can, because things from other realms, messages and information is trying to get to you, whether you consciously remember what that is or not. It's being stored within your body. And then one more scene with a little one. So anyway, I just thought those were really pretty. And then I will just show you a few more cards and I'll wrap it up. I don't even know what time. Yeah, it'll be time to wrap it up. These I'll just show. These come from the Earth Alchemy Oracle deck. And these are going to go more in the rainbow direction, but I think there's also some type of Pegasus or unicorn. Yeah, both actually coming up. That's the back of the card, so it shows the crystal. And these are just really pretty. They're more wash and pastel-like, but look at that. Beautiful rainbow. That's saying Pearl and Larimar, let go. Another, okay. Double message, surrender, release, patterns, and triggers. And coming from Pleiades. That's a very pretty card. We got the beautiful dolphin imagery. And then we have Ethiopian opal, fertile ground, Pegasus, unicorn energy, rainbow child. How beautiful that is. Okay, this one's nice as well. Sanctuary of light and mugwort portal. I can't read the first one. What does it say? 5D, healing temple, astral travel. And this one reminds me of the energy of the churchyards with the yew tree on the side. We got a little dragon up at the top. Look at that beautiful rainbow energy there in the portal. And we've got the arches, the portal. That arch itself kind of looks like the rainbow in that church door. And then I brought this one because it reminds me of the tree of life we talked about, the Empress tree, catalyst for change, clarity, freedom, unbinding. And that's like that beautiful tree of life imagery we're talking about. And tree of knowledge. Okay, just two more cards. Okay, diamond heart seed crystal, golden age wisdom, DNA activation, Lemuria priestess awakening. So we've got this. Oh, this card's cool because over here we've got a rainbow portal with like a dolphin jumping through it. I think that's a really beautiful card. That's also very Garden of Eden kind of energy there. And then we'll wind up on this card, the crystal dragon, sound and color, new healing modalities, rainbow ray, solfeggio frequencies. And there we have the dragon energy. And behind it, it looks like a Pegasus or unicorn happening in there in the crystals. Okay, so that is that. So I don't know if anybody has any thoughts. Again, thank you for chiming in the, the live chat if you have. I think, yeah, I'll just kind of wrap it up for today. And actually, no, I'll end one live crystal instead of just the cards. This is a Celestine or Celestite. I've shown it before, but since we're kind of talking about water energy and other realms, heavenly realms, that kind of does it. It is a light blue. It's kind of hard to see, but it's really pretty. It's got a nice weight to it. This is what I use for crystal healing in certain applications because it's really nice when it wants to be called on. So there we go. All right. Well, I really appreciate all of you being here. And yeah, we'll see what happens for next week. And until then, all the best. Tremendous peace and love to everyone. Till next time. Bye. Thanks.